To the class. All right, good morning. Today we are in Leviticus 22. It's pretty much going to be a straight read with some explanation as to what some of the words mean. And I'll be reading from Thomas Nelson commentary, which is pretty straightforward today. And a lot of this is repetition. So let's just get into it right now. Leviticus 22. Restrictions against the unclean. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and to his sons, that they separate themselves from the holy things of the children of Israel, and that they profane not my holy name in those things which they hallow unto me. I am the Lord. Now, once again, just to remind you, it was spoken of in the past few chapters here and there. Just to let's refresh our memory what profaning is. Profane means to treat something sacred with abuse, irreverence, which is the opposite, of course, of reverence, right? Irreverence, like not caring about, not holding anything in as something special, or in contempt, by debasing, by a wrong, unworthy, or vulgar use. Well, it pretty much says it all right there. They are not to profane my holy name. He's very adamant. The Lord, our God, is very adamant about not using his name profanely. Now, there's vain and profane, and there's probably not a direct dividing line between the two. They probably kind of like melt into one another, because you could use it vainly, meaning, oh my God, like that, just in surprise, but you're not saying it in an abusive way. So, but that is in vain, because you're not addressing God, or you're not, making any vows. You're not saying the Lord's name with any kind of use. So it's in vain. It's a useless use of the word. But profane, we know it means abusive. So, but they probably cross over. So, I just wanted to touch on that, because he's very adamant about not using his name profanely. He also says, thou shalt not use my name in vain. He says that too, but here how many times has it been repeated? Not to profane his holy name, not to abuse it, not to pay disrespect to it. And once again, here we go. Not profane not my holy name in those things which they hallow unto me. Hallow, that word hallow needs to be set apart or consecrated. And we're going to see in this chapter that he refers to him hallowing us, that he sets us apart, that he makes us special. In whose eyes? In his eyes, right? Verse 3, say unto them, whosoever he be of all your seed, all the children, all your seed among your generations, that goeth unto the holy things, which the children of Israel hallow unto the Lord, having his uncleanness upon him, that soul shall be cut off from my presence. So whatever that uncleanness is, there are several things that are mentioned here. But if you go to him in uncleanness, that soul shall be cut off from my presence. Well, that means pretty much put to death. That soul, the soul meaning taken as a living being, a self, a person, not as a desire and emotions and the mind as it's many times used, but here it's being a soul, a living being, a life. And to be cut off, we know means to be cut off means to be cut down is the word karath, which means to be put to death. And it says, having his unclean upon him, that soul shall be cut off from my presence. I am the Lord. What man soever of the seed of Aaron is a leper or hath a running issue, and we learned that a running issue is usually has to do with the running forth of fluids out of a man, and it could be, some say that it's possibly a sickness. I have my feeling that it is more the issue of a man as referred to the seed of a man. And it will mention again in this coming up in this chapter that he's talking about the seed of a man coming forth. So so once again, what man soever of the seed of Aaron is a leper or hath a running issue, he shall not eat of the holy things until he be clean. Wow. So you can't eat of, and the holy things we know are the things that were given unto the Levites as their, because they had no whatchamacallit, they had no what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't matter. They had to live off the stuff, the givings of whoever gave to them. That's what I'm getting at. So they cannot eat until he be clean. He cannot eat. And whoso toucheth anything that is unclean by the dead, or a man whose seed goeth from him, there it is, or a man whose seed that's who touches that's uncleanness. A man whose seed goeth from him, or whosoever toucheth any creeping thing, whereby he may made unclean, or a man of whom he may take uncleanness, whatsoever uncleanness he hath. Now that one is a strange one. Whatever uncleanness he takes, he gets from whatever uncleanness he has. That to me is like, what does that mean exactly? So it means that this stuff is transferable. That's what it means. And listen to what it says here. And whosoever toucheth anything that is unclean by the dead, or a man, or his seed goeth from him, or whosoever toucheth any creeping thing. So what do we know about creeping things? We know that creeping things are bugs, right? Well, when you go and look at the translation, it's the Hebrew word is sherets. And the definition is swarmers, swarming things, not just creeping things, but things that swarm. And what swarms? Often when we go and start looking for what a swarm is, we'll think of bees right away, right? We'll think of anything that hovers in a manner like a bee, there could be swarms of mosquitoes, whatever. But there is also swarming as crawling. And when you look up that definition of swarmers, oftentimes right away it brings you to termites. So there's all kinds of creeping things that are considered unclean, and termites, I guess, would be one of them. So just to say that these creeping things, they're swarmers. So whereby he be made unclean, or a man of whom he may take uncleanness, whatsoever uncleanness he hath. And that, again, if anybody wants to shed light on what that possibly might mean, you're welcome to do so either in the comments or later in our discussion here. That whatever uncleanness he has, he took, that uncleanness he has. Continuing on, instructions for cleansing. Verse 6, the soul which hath touched any such thing shall be unclean until even, and shall not eat of the holy things unless he wash his flesh with water. Now, why would you be unclean until even? One possibility would be that it's to keep you in remembrance to whatever uncleanness you have or had for a certain amount of time. That and I could just picture some people going, how much longer do I have to wait? When is the sun going down? And be looking towards, in those days, be looking towards the sunset to know that when, okay, now I'm unclean, now I can do whatever, I can eat, I can do whatever I wanted to do, but I couldn't because I was unclean. So it says, so they're not to eat of holy things until the even, unless he washes flesh with water. So on top of waiting until the evening, you had to wash yourself. And when the sun is down, there it is, he shall be clean and shall afterward eat of the holy things, because it is his food. That which dieth of itself, or is torn with beasts. So anything that dies on its own, or anything that was killed by another animal. In other words, anything that a scavenger would eat, were not to eat. They were not to eat. He shall not defile himself therewith. I am the Lord. So people who would eat anything that was killed, that died of its own accord without the blood being drained from it, or that it was killed and left as roadkill, so to speak. It was you were defiling yourself, and it was not to be eaten. They shall therefore keep mine ordinance, lest they bear sin for it, and die therefore. If they profane it, I, the Lord, do sanctify them. So, lest they bear sin for it. So, if you do, you're going to bear your sin. You're going to take your sin, you're going to carry it and die therefore. So, to the point of sinning here would be a death sentence. Doing these sins was a death sentence for him. Thank you, Lord, for grace. Thank you that we don't have to go through this today. Can you imagine what this was like? All these laws, the 613, besides the 10 commandments, 613 Levitical laws that you had to keep. That, how many people today say, well, you have to keep the law, you have to do this, yeah. They don't. They better start going in and really reading what this involves, because keeping some of the law, you break one, you might as well be guilty of breaking them all. And besides that, as we know in Hebrews 10, verse 30, I believe it's 30, it's the last verse anyway. It says, but we are of those who believe unto salvation, and not those who return unto perdition. What's perdition? Perdition is destruction. What does that mean? I'll say it like this: "O foolish Galatians, who hath bewitched you?" We know who bewitches the brethren and who makes them think that they have to bring the law. Well, Jesus said it. Jesus said it very clearly. He said, "Not one jot nor tittle of the law shall be changed, shall be broken, shall be changed until it is all fulfilled." Well, I ask you, did he not fulfill the law? Did Jesus not fulfill? He taketh away the first, that's the first covenant, to establish the second. That is the New Testament. That is the new covenant between God and his children. Okay, moving on. Verse 10, there shall no stranger eat of the holy thing. What's the holy thing? Anything that is given as a sacrifice to God, whether it be burnt offerings, meat offerings, and so on and so forth. A sojourner of the priest. A sojourner, which means somebody who's visiting, a visitor of the priest, somebody who's staying there. So a visitor of the priest or a hired servant shall not eat of the holy thing. But if the priest buy any soul with his money, he shall eat of it, and he that is born in his house, they shall eat of his meat. Interesting. If the priest buy any soul, well, that's interesting. Any soul with his money. Well, what's he buying when he's buying a soul? We'll go to the translation, nephesh. That word, and I've used it before, is a soul, a living being, a life. Well, are you buying a human when you're buying a soul? No, you're buying an animal. That's what he's talking about. Does that tell you that animals have souls? Right there. There you go. But if the priest buy any soul with his money, he shall eat of it. There it is. A living soul can be an animal too. And he that is born in his house, they shall eat of his meat. If the priest's daughter also be married unto a stranger, she may not eat of an offering of the holy things. Wow. But if the priest's daughter be a widow or divorced and have no child, notice it adds that, and have no child, and is returned unto her father's house, as in her youth, she shall eat of her father's meat, but there shall no stranger eat thereof. That's very interesting, that she's not allowed until she's a widow and goes back to live with her in her father's house without children. I find that interesting. I don't know how to explain it, but I find it very interesting. Once again, moving on, verse 14, and if a man eat of the holy thing unwittingly, not knowingly, then he shall put the fifth part thereof unto it, and shall give it unto the priest with the holy thing. So it's a tithe. In other words, if they eat of something not knowingly, well then, you better take Now your way to get around that is, or to be atoned of that would be to give a fifth part, which is what? 20%. 20% of whatever you're eating, you have to give it to the priest with the holy thing. Verse 15, and they shall not profane the holy things of the children of Israel, which they offer unto the Lord. Again, to profane, to pay non-reverence, to abuse in talking about. You are profaning something. It means you're not holding respect for it, making it like it's of no reverence whatsoever. So they shall not profane the holy things of the children of Israel, which they offer unto the Lord, or suffer them to bear the iniquity of trespass when they eat their holy things, for I, the Lord, do sanctify them. So they are not to suffer them to bear the iniquity of trespass when they eat their holy things, for I, the Lord, do sanctify them. If the Lord sanctifies you, you're good to go, right? Worthy offerings, verse 17. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto Aaron and to his sons and to all the children of Israel, and say unto them, whatsoever he be of the house of Israel or of the strangers in Israel that will offer his oblation, his offering, for all his vows, for all his free will offerings. That's a free will offering is an offering you just want to come and give to the Lord for thanks, for whatever, a free will offering by your own accord, by your own decision. So, and for all his free will offerings, which they will offer unto the Lord for a burnt offering, ye shall offer at your own will a male without blemish of the beeves, of the sheep, or of the goats. Beeves is the herds, which would be oxen or cattle, right? So you will offer of your own free will a male without blemish of the beeves, of the sheep, or of the goats. But whatsoever hath a blemish shall ye not offer, for it shall not be acceptable for you. And whosoever offereth a sacrifice of peace offerings unto the Lord to accomplish his vow, or a free will offering in beeves or sheep, again, beeves is a herd, it shall be perfect to be accepted. There shall be no blemish therein. Blind or broken or maimed or having a wen is a running sore, or scurvy. A scurvy would be an itching, a scabby itching, or scabbed, which would be both, which would be itching, running, scabby, right? That would be kind of disgusting, right? To offer somebody something like that. Ye shall not offer these unto the Lord, nor make an offering by fire of them upon the altar unto the Lord. So even burning them in a burnt offering, not acceptable. Either a bullock or a lamb that hath anything superfluous. So superfluous, extra. So any extra, an extra ear, an extra eye, whatever it is, a tail that's too long, or whatever it would be, something extra that hath anything superfluous or lacking. So something missing in his parts, thou mayest offer for a free will offering. So offer up free by choice, but as a vow, it will not be accepted. You shall not offer unto the Lord that which is bruised or crushed or broken or cut, neither shall ye make any offering thereof in your land. Neither from a stranger's hand shall ye offer the bread of your God to any of these, because their corruption is in them, and blemishes be in them. They shall not be accepted for you. You can't offer anything from a stranger's hand. All right. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, when a bullock or a sheep or a goat is brought forth, then it shall be 7 days under the dam, and from the 8th day thenceforth it shall be accepted for an offering made by fire unto the Lord. Now, under the dam, that means suckling off its mother. Under the mother would be under the mother, and it's basically when they're underneath and they're suckling, right? And I find this interesting because you'll notice that in all the cleansing, it's always 7 days, most of the time anyway, unless unless a female has been, in her uncleanness for longer than 7 days, for longer than her time, then it's until 7 days after the length of her time. So, but it's usually 7 days until one is clean. And here it says the bullock or the sheep or the goat that is brought forth should be with the mother 7 days. And another thing that I found interesting is it's the same thing with a male when they're circumcised. It's the 8th day. So again, there's reference to 7 days, and then on the 8th day, it's nothing like the Sabbath where it's the 7th day. These are after 7 days. The 8th day, they shall be clean. They shall be, they shall be accepted as a sacrifice when they're with the mother for 7 days. So, and this is what it says here. And whether it be cow or ewe, you shall not kill it and her young in 1 day. A ewe is a female sheep. So whether it be a cow or ewe, you shall not kill it and her young both in 1 day. So they were not to kill the mother and the children in the same day. And when you will offer a sacrifice of thanksgiving unto the Lord, offer it at your own will, your own choice. On the same day it shall be eaten up. You shall leave none of it until the morrow. I am the Lord, therefore shall you keep my commandments and do them. I am the Lord. And once again, he brings it again. Neither shall ye profane my holy name, but it will be hallowed. Hallowed. Now that word hallowed, quadash, to be set apart or consecrated among the children of Israel. I am the Lord which hallow you. I am the Lord which sets apart and consecrates you. I brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of bondage, to be your God. I am the Lord. And that's Leviticus 22. And we're going to go into Thomas Nelson a bit because it's pretty direct and to the point today. There's not much in the opinion of anybody, but more of what it is. This chapter, from verse 1 to 33, it's talked about as this chapter continues for the emphasis. Remember, this is repeating. There's a lot of repetition here that was already spoke about in previous chapters. So it continues the emphasis from chapter 21. The concept of the Lord as the sanctifier is continued in 22:9, 16, and 32, marking off 3 distinct sections. Impediments, so impediments meaning hindering of eating priestly food. Impediments, you're not supposed to. In other words, you're not supposed to. You're impeded not to eat priestly food. 2, the relatives' right to priestly food. And 3, physical impediments to sacrificial use of animals. As I said, superfluous, meaning extra, or not having enough, lacking of, only to be used for one kind of a sacrifice, which would be your free will offering, or any other, for any of the other offerings, not to have any kind of blemish whatsoever. The Aaronites are reminded that they too can become defiled ceremonially, just like any other member of the congregation. Purity is mandatory for those officiating the sacrifices. So officiating meaning, being the officers of, right? If a priest approaches having his uncleanness upon him, that soul shall be cut off from my presence, verse 3. So it shows you, even the priest can be killed. And we know they used to attach that rope with a bell to them. And when they went into the Holy of Holies, were they defiled in any way, chances are they wouldn't make it out. They'd be tugging on that rope to see it and listening for the bell. And if it wasn't, they'd pull the rope out, and that priest would be dead. And now in verse 20, in 22, verse 10, the stranger, so no outsider, that is, one who was not priestly stock, might eat of the holy food, unless he had been incorporated into the priest's family. Simply to live with the priest or to work for him was not enough. But the slave could be bought, in which case he was considered a member of the family. And then in 24 and 25, castration of animals was not to be practiced in Israel. No castrated animals were to be offered under any circumstances, even those bought from foreigners. Men in similar conditions were forbidden even to worship with the congregation in ancient Israel. And that we'll read about in Deuteronomy 23, verse 1. And what is that? That is the curse of the bastard, Deuteronomy 23, verse 1. It's men will not be accepted into the congregation for how long? 10 generations. A bastard will not be accepted for 10 generations into the congregation. What does that mean? 10 generations. That's 400 years. Each generation at that time was 40 years. That's 400-year curse by God. Castration damaged God's creation. Holiness was symbolized in wholeness. No animals younger than 8 years were to be offered in sacrifice. 8 days, 8 years. No animals younger than 8 days were to be offered in sacrifice. And it references Exodus 22, verse 30. Nor was a cow or a ewe to be killed with her young in the same day, whether for sacrificial purposes or in some pagan cults, or for ordinary food consumption. This was in harmony with the laws prohibiting such wasteful practices as taking of a bird as well as its eggs in Deuteronomy 22, verse 6 and 7, or the indiscriminate destruction of trees as spoke about in Deuteronomy 20, verse 19 and 20. All these matters in the main purpose was that God's name would be hallowed, set aside, consecrated, made holy. Matthew 6, 9, Luke 11, 2. By who? By us, his elect people. And now there's a thing here on the next, no, that's 23. Okay, well, that's it for you, brothers and sisters. That's Leviticus 22. And I thank you, Father in heaven. Thank you for your word, Lord. Thank you for grace. Praise you, Lord. Bless you. Amen.